Now, here's your host for AHA Business Radio, Allan Hirsh.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's show. Tonight, the third Tuesday of the month, we will be talking business with four CEOs and business owners in the Baltimore area. My guests this evening are Phil Weiss of Apprise Management, Philip Talkoff, president of Talkoff Food Products, Elizabeth Wegline, CEO of Elizabeth Cooney Care Network, and Al Maddox, CEO and president of Times Printers. In this first segment, my first guest will be Phil Weiss of Apprise Management. Phil, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Alan. Happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. The first question I ask every guest, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
The ability to work with other people and help them. Financial education in our country is not very good. There's lots of people that have been put in a situation where they no longer have pensions and things like that. They're forced to manage their financial future, and I look forward to the opportunity to help them.
So how do you help them?
So I do lots of different things. I can simply just manage their investments. I can tell them how to, what the best way to invest is based upon their personality, their needs, their goals. I can help them put together a budget. I can put together a financial plan so they can figure out what kind of retirement that they can have. So,
how'd you get into this? I mean, I know you can explain your background, but you're really not, background really isn't financial planning.
No, it's not. So I started my career as a CPA, and I used to do individual taxes. Then that morphed into doing international corporate tax planning. So if you look at companies that we've heard in the news that have a lot of cash trapped overseas, I used to be involved in planning that helped put that cash there. Decided I didn't want to do that anymore.
And now maybe with the new law, they'll start bringing, some of them have started to bring it back in.
That's correct.
Which hopefully will benefit American business, but we'll see what happens.
That's right. And so from there, I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I was writing for the Motley Fool while I was working in tax and found out about the CFA program, Chartered Financial Analyst. I went and got that designation, and I became an analyst. I covered oil and gas stocks for 7 years. And then from there, I was managing a portfolio also, and I went to work for a registered investment advisor, like my firm. And after being there for about 3 years, I just decided that I had my own way that I wanted to do things, and I wanted to make sure that it was done my way, and so I decided to launch my own business.
So what is your way? What's the way you do it that makes you different from other investment advisors?
So there's a few things. One of the first things is, because I'm a CPA and I'm a CFA, and because I have a registered investment advisory business, I act as a fiduciary. Which means that I'm willing to put my client's interests ahead of my own. I'm willing to sign a fiduciary oath that says that I will serve as a fiduciary for my clients. That's one thing. The other thing is, because of my tax background, I can also take a very tax-aware approach to everything that we do, whether it be something we're doing now or thinking about the future, because there's lots of different accounts and options that you have to put your assets in, and then even deciding from a tax perspective what assets belong where. So there's lots of things that I can do like that. I can help you with planning, looking at things like health savings accounts, which most people don't even really know what they are or use them effectively.
So what is a health savings? Very quickly, what's a health savings account, since most people don't know what they are?
So a health savings account is if you work for a company and you have what's considered a high deductible for your health plan, you're allowed to put money away to help you meet your medical needs. You should put that money away even if you don't need to use it, as long as you can, because that money can actually sit in that account. You can invest it if you want. You can just let it sit in like a bank account and be able to use it many years in the future. And if you have the proper documentation and records, then you can use that money for anything you want at some future point. The benefits of it are that the money that goes in tax-free. Any growth that it gets is tax-free. And then if you're using it for qualified medical expenses that you accumulated at some point while that money was there, then you can take it out tax-free.
Tax-free or tax as a tax deduction?
Tax-free.
Tax-free.
So it's triple
Okay.
tax-free.
Okay. So if companies have high deductible, you should be taking advantage of it so you can pay the deductible out of it, even if you don't use it.
That's correct. Or if you can find another way to cover the deductible and let that money sit there, that's even better, because now you can let it accumulate and use it in the future.
This is, in a sense, even better than the IRAs or pension plans, because if you put them in, as I understand it, with before tax dollars, when you take it out later at 59.5, required at 70, you're actually being taxed on it. So it's a savings plan that actually has no taxes on it.
That's correct. And that's why I'm saying it's triple tax-free, because it goes in tax-free, it grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free. You put money into your 401k or any other plan like that at work, when the money comes out, you're taxed on it. So there's tax at some point.
And that's true of the Roth IRA, which is after-tax dollars, but you don't pay tax when you take it out.
Correct.
Because you put it in when you put it in.
That's correct.
So those are two. I want to go back to something you said about you're willing to sign which makes you different, the fiduciary responsibility. Why is that so different? And I don't want to challenge other investment advisors out there, but I think I know the answer. Why does that make you different?
Well, if you look at the world in which I work and the world in which I live, there's different ways to do business. You have a suitability standard, which many brokers are subject to, which means that they just have to find things that are suitable for you. It doesn't mean that they have to be what's best for you. So they may not have your best interests at heart. And then even some people, when they are deciding, making the recommendations, there's always conflicts that can exist. Like if you ask me and I'm managing your money, should I pay down my mortgage or should I put the money into the market? Well, if I'm thinking just about me, right, then I would say, well, give me the money to invest because that's one of the ways that I can get compensated. But I'm saying that we'll talk about it. We'll make sure that we do what's best for you. If you're more comfortable paying down more of your mortgage and having less debt, then that's what's best for you and that's what should be done. And I'm willing to actually go out there and sign something that says that I'm going to act as a fiduciary. So that therefore, to me, that holds me to a little bit higher standard because I've actually got in writing that I'm going to act as a fiduciary on your behalf.
Yeah, because I recall, and I could be wrong, that the Department of Labor 2 years ago wanted financial advisors to act as fiduciaries when it was dealing with pension money. But I don't know if that ever went into effect.
It did not. As a matter of fact, I was reading something just this week that talked about, for people like me, it's a really big marketing opportunity because honestly, I don't see why people wouldn't want to work with a fiduciary. Why wouldn't you want to work with somebody that has your best interest in mind? And the brokerage world, the large investment banks, they pay a lot of money to help keep, to lobby to keep this legislation from passing. They tried to put it in the hands of the SEC. We don't know what's going to happen, but we thought that we were going to have a fiduciary rule, at least for retirement assets. Right now, we don't have one for anything, really.
Yeah, and when you don't, I hate to use this example, but there's a investment advising company that was based in Baltimore that used to have a radio show, and I won't use their name, that's banned from doing it because they were not even actually anywhere near fiduciarily. Their interest was making money for themselves, not necessarily for their clients. And what you're trying to do, as I understand it, which is why I asked you to be here, is the fact that you want to make sure with your clients that you have their interest first, not your interest.
That's absolutely correct.
So one piece of advice you would give investors out there before we wind up this segment.
For investors, to me, it's important to think long term. And there's lots of reasons for that. Personally, I have stocks that I've owned 20 years, and I try to manage my business in that same way. I want something that make decisions that are for the long term. When we start to do a lot of trading, we get in and out, and we get worried about fear. And I actually speak about behavioral investing.
Well, fear is false expectations appearing real. You think, yes. and if you look at and I'll just add something that I learned a while. If you are in and out, there's a term: bulls make money, bears make money, pigs lose.
Yes.
And that's going in and out of the market. Trying to time the market doesn't work.
It does not work. And what it does do is it creates a lot of extra costs. And they show that there was an old study.
The only ones that make money are the broker, the investment advisors.
That's correct. Fidelity looked at the performance of the different people that had accounts there. This was a few years back. And they found the ones that had the best returns on their accounts were the ones that basically forgot they even had the account. It was just there. It sat there. Because if you look over the long term, and history does not necessarily have to repeat itself, but over the long term, the market goes up 8 to 10% per year. That's with good years, bad years, and everything else.
And then I got to wind up the segment. But according to T. Rowe Price, every 15 years since 1900, the average annual rate of return of the stock market has been 8.5%.
Right.
And if you just buy it for their good companies and just, as you say, sit on long term, you're going to average 8.5% return. Anyway, Phil, I want to thank you for being here. How can any of the listeners out there reach you?
There's a few different ways. You can go to my website, which is aprisewealth.com. If you go to my website, there's a contact form that you can fill out. You can also check my blog and sign up to receive that. And then you'll be on my distribution list and you'll find other information. I'm also on Twitter at @aprisewealth. And my firm also has a Facebook page.
Well, again, thank you for being here. As we go to commercial break, I want to let everyone know that I will be talking to Philip Talkoff, who's president of Talkoff Food Products, a local food manufacturer in Baltimore. Later in the show, I have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the show. This segment, my guest is Phil Talkoff. He's the president of Talkoff Food Products. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Allan.
I'm glad you could be here. First question I ask every guest, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
Oh, I guess the challenge of keeping the operation running and the opportunities to make new things. We've branched out into doing co-packing, co-manufacturing, so we get the opportunity to make lots of different products. We started with horseradish, and that's what everybody knows us for, but these days we make lots of different things. And
so what are some of the other things you're making these days?
We do everything these days from garlic spread, steak sauce, Asian sauces, coconut oil, cooking wines. We've done a little bit of everything.
Are they mostly under your name or co-branded?
No, none of those things are our name. Co-manufacturing is you're making somebody else's product for them. It's their recipe, it's their package, it's their label. You're not really supposed to know that somebody else is making it for them. These are all national brands that you would know.
Well, I mean, it's no different than the private brands in the in supermarkets. A Giant brand or a Safeway brand, they're going to someone like you or they're going to the name brand people to manufacture it.
Exactly. We do a little bit of that where it's a store brand. These are more national brands that you would know that make lots of different products. But it might not be in their wheelhouse. They may make one particular type of product, but they want something else with their name on it that they can't make based on the kind of equipment or capacity they have, and they outsource it to somebody else.
So your family's been in this business for quite a while. Tell us a little bit about the family history of Talkoff, because I know it from, as you said, from horseradish.
Right.
Anybody who knows horseradish products knows the name.
Right. So the company started about 85 years ago. My grandparents, Harry and Lena Talkoff, were immigrants from Russia. And when they first came to the United States, they started a grocery store in New York City. And one of the things they used to do is grind fresh horseradish for their customers. Somehow that morphed into moving to Baltimore and manufacturing horseradish on a full-time basis. I was actually hoping for a candy company or a car dealership. But so they moved to Baltimore. They were on Lombard Street. The only thing left from where they are now is directly across the street, which is Atman's. Atman's is still there. We were directly across from there. From there, that we moved to Brewers Hill. We were in the old Schaefer Brewery for about 30 years. And then about 10 years ago, we moved into the Dundalk area, where we did our first greenfield build and built a factory from scratch.
Okay. So what is, you've been there, what,
14 years.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a fourth generation business owner?
So I would say the biggest challenge was that the people running the company prior to me were not investing back in the business. And that had to do with infrastructure, equipment, people, technology. So when I took over, there was a lot to fix. There weren't there weren't PCs on people's desks when I started. Nobody had email. The equipment, some of it was practically as old as I was at the time, and I was 44 when I took over. So,
or even older if you're talking about grinding horseradish.
Right. So a lot of old equipment. So the first thing was to sort of change that culture, reinvest back in the business in terms of people and equipment, and also up our game when it came to food safety, food quality. And there was a lot of new standards that had come out since 9/11 in terms of food safety and food quality. So
how did 9/11? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
But how did 9/11 affect? I know it affected travel around the world.
It did, but it also affected. They saw the food chain as a possible weak link. So you had to do things about protecting your product, your facility, And all that is part of all the food safety programs that you have to do now, as well as the quality assurance programs that you have in place.
Okay. So during that I guess it's really restructuring, rebuilding the culture, rebuilding a business. What was a decision or something that you made that didn't work out as well as you would have liked, and what'd you learn from it?
Okay, I got one real quickly. We did invest in another business. So there was a larger company that did spices in the area. I won't say who they were, but they were spinning off their food service division. So that's the group that sells the larger sizes to restaurants, pepper and spices and things like that. They wanted to get rid of it, and sort of that wasn't their forte. I decided that it was a good fit with what we did. So we bought it, tried to run it, and it did not work out well. So we divested ourselves of it and took the lumps and moved on.
Did by any chances, did they buy it back or?
No. Actually, another entrepreneur bought it from us, but they were interested in going more upscale. They were doing more industrial, where they're selling to people that make potato chips or snack foods, and they wanted to buy hundreds and hundreds of pounds at a time.
Oh, okay. Yep. So what did that teach you, and what did you learn from it? Because part of being a business owner, and I'm a firm believer, the only person that never takes a risk and never did anything, and we learn by things that don't work more so sometimes than the things that do work.
Right. Well, I guess part of it is when you do your investigation, you look for things that justify what you think is the right answer, and not look at all the things that might be problems. One of the things that happens in the food service industry, which is where this was, is that there's commissions that sort of go back and forth to the distributor. There's programs you have to pay up front, sort of like slotting fees you would pay at a grocery store. People have heard of that. What we didn't take into account was the fees we were paying on the horseradish and garlic and cocktail sauce business were not considered as part of this spice business. So the customer said, "Oh no, that doesn't count. You also have to pay these fees to get in the door," and that wasn't built into the model of profitability that we looked at.
So
when
you
we
hadn't.
bought this.
So what would you have done differently at that point? If you, in the beginning, what would you have done differently that you learned after the fact?
Probably asked more questions. Maybe even found a friendly competitor that was selling somewhat in that space and said, how does this work? And if you're doing both the kind of things that we're doing, are these programs? Because that's a key part of whether you're profitable or not in that food service industry. So probably dug a little deeper, maybe done a little more investigation.
Okay.
Yep.
You're 85 years old approximately, I think you said.
I'm 57, but
I'm at
yeah.
the business. Now, your business, I know.
Right, I know.
You're a lot. You don't look as old as your business. I don't look as old as my family business. Although we stopped publishing, next month will be 128 years old. I know I'm not that old, and I'm older than you are. So where do you want the business to be in the next 5 or 10 years? I mean, you're in your 50s.
Right.
Where do you want it to be in the next, so that and continue that legacy? And
right.
how are you going to continue that legacy?
So the plan is to keep it in the family. There was a fourth generation that joined about a year and a half ago. My goal is to groom him and have him be able to take over, so it does stay as a family business. I think when you get to fourth generation, you're talking about 3 or 4% of family businesses make it to the fourth generation. I think you got to continue to grow to be successful. So growth is definitely a big part of our plan. We're very lucky to have lots of opportunities. Our biggest impediment right now is capacity, to have enough capacity to continue to do all the work that's presented to us.
So what are you going to do to build the challenge then? The biggest challenge then is to build the capacity.
Correct. So one of the things we've looked at is expanding the building that we're currently in. We've been there 10 years. There's an opportunity to add some square footage to that, so we've looked into that. The other opportunity would be to upgrade some of the equipment we have to be a little more versatile, to be able to do the opportunities presented to us as well as the existing business that we have. And then our West Coast plant, we're investing in more equipment and different equipment out there to be able to do more.
That sounds great. So if you had the opportunity to stand before a group of entrepreneurs or one-on-one with an entrepreneur, what would be one or two of your thoughts to help them understand what it's like to run a business?
I would say that it's all encompassing, that you really need to have some experience and rounded background. I have an engineering background, which is great for the manufacturing side of things. But the business side, I did go back to school years ago and got my MBA, and I think that was invaluable in understanding the full gamut of what you need to be able to get your arms around to run a business. The one thing, we see a lot of entrepreneurs that come in and want us to make their product for them. And I would say the biggest thing that I see there is they don't understand cash flow. That cash is king, that old slogan. And their biggest downfall is they're successful in selling their product, but they run out of money.
Well, because their cash is in inventory and in receivables.
Exactly.
I have someone I'm working with who has his inventory is 3 times his sales.
Right.
And he's out of cash.
Right. And the more successful you are, the faster you're successful, the quicker you run out of money.
Right. I agree with you. Finally, I want to thank you for being here, but how can listeners out there reach you or your company to find out about your products or just ask any questions if they have of you?
Sure. Well, the easiest way would be to go to our website, tolkoff.com. And
that's TULKOFF?
Correct. And there's links to, there's lots of recipes out there that use our products that you can tap into, information about our products. And we do have an online store, so if you can't find things in the grocery store, because we are not real big into retail, you can order anything online. And all the proceeds from anything that you order go to a charity as opposed to us.
Well, that's great. Again, I want to thank you for being here, Phil. When I come back from the commercial break, I'll be talking to Elizabeth Weglin. She is the CEO and third-generation owner of Elizabeth Cooney Care Network. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
This segment, I have in the studio with me Elizabeth Weglin. She's the CEO of Elizabeth Cooney Care Network here in Baltimore, multi-generation family business. But I want to remind the listeners out there, if you have any questions questions, want to talk to Elizabeth or myself, give us a call, 410-481-1300. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure being here.
My first question to every guest is, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
I think it's passion and drive. Truly, it's the energy that I get back from caring for all of your different families, and really the love and nurturing that is meaningful to me to be able to have a purpose today and every day.
So what is your business? What is the Elizabeth Cooney Care Network?
So Elizabeth Cooney Care Network was founded back in 1957 by my grandmother, Elizabeth Cooney. So everything is still in her namesake and in her honor, because she really had the unusual vision and fortitude to be able to create a business wrapped around caregiving. And so we provide caregiving services to all ages, from newborns all the way up to about 113 is our oldest client.
I still say that's one. Before the show we were talking. I thought it sounds to me like one of the oldest people in the country. There are not many people that get that old.
Maryland's lucky. We have a lot of over centennials.
You would know.
Absolutely, they're good people, and Maryland's a good place to live and age, and to really thrive even in their later years. So that's all good.
So what kind of services do you do? I mean, I must admit, and I'll do it on the air, that when my wife and I had our 2 children, 40 plus or minus 40 years to be exact, we used your agency. I remember the name of the nurse we had.
Even better.
But I won't say it on air. But we used them for a couple weeks. My wife wanted to help around the house as a baby nurse.
Exactly.
And it was wonderful.
And we're at about 5 generations of taking care of babies. And it's a phenomenal niche that we have just been very, very fortunate to have. So families and women turn to us for caregiving, whether it be after their maternity and they just need a little respite or a little break from all the the whole experience and wonderful experience to be able to just enjoy the baby and not have to worry about everything else. So we go in, take care of the baby, take care of the feeding, bathing, everything that may be needed, and be a watchful and keen eye for any type of nuances or changes.
And I would say in our case, 41 years ago, that's a little over 41 years, it was also teaching a first-time mother how to care for a baby, too.
Absolutely. And similar to babies and also aging individuals, we all come back to our place. So as we were born, we also go to the same point. So it's really the taking care of, understanding the nurturing and what their needs are, bathing, dressing, feeding, coddling, and
that's
sure
in
that
both ends of the spectrum, whether it's a 1 or 2 day old or a 113-year-old.
Exactly.
It's really about caregiving, and you've been doing it, your company's been doing it 61 years?
61 years. This is our 61st year, and it's third-generation female business. So it went from my grandmother to my mother to myself, and I'm the CEO of the Elizabeth Cooney Care Network.
Well, so I like asking and learning from business owners. Over the last, I don't know how long you've been the CEO, but you can tell us, say or not, that's up to you. But during your tenure, has there been a decision you made that didn't come out the way you wanted it? And what was it? And what did you learn? And in learning it, what would you have done differently if you had to do it over again?
I think it's important to test the waters and to work outside of your box and really explore where your capacity is and where your thresholds are within running a business. So sometimes you go down a different avenue, you think that it's going to work out, and it may not, and that's okay. Even know that you spent time, treasure, money, and efforts in really maintaining a different line of business. It's worth the while to figure out what worked and what didn't. I learned a lot over all the years. I started when I was 13 years old, so I've been in the business now way
So at
too
13,
long.
what were you doing?
Oh my gosh! And the folks around me, the team that was around me, was just so generous because back in that day we were actually typing with fingers.
Well,
one at a time.
I know those days. I remember taking typing, and one of the things I hated that my parents insisted was taking typing in junior high school. Mm-hmm. It's probably the best thing they ever did for me, particularly since the computer age.
Exactly, and I think my thumbs are moving faster than ever, and actually I don't even look anymore. So it's too fast.
Right,
that's great.
So, what in experimenting and looking at opportunities? Mm-hmm. Is there something you learned that you can share with the listeners? Because I'm a firm believer that we learn more or as much when we don't do it right as when we do it right. Because when you do it right, everything's in place. But I believe we learn from our mistakes, and I'm a firm believer the only person that never took a chance, took a risk, was someone who never did anything.
That's true. And I think when you're running a very successful company and that we have the threshold and the trust, it's important to keep figuring things out. So we've been engaged in different pilot programs with some state entities to really figure out what works, what doesn't work. And it doesn't always work out the way that envisioned as pilot programs would be designed. But I think, it allowed the state to be able to see exactly what their needs were, see what the funding options were, and they were underfunded, which makes it a little bit challenging. But it also takes a teamwork to be able to figure out how to be cohesive and what type of level of communication do you need, and especially when you're doing something new. And I think people need to learn the fact that they can trust themselves to really learn something new. So it's not just bringing a new line of a project or product line in. It's really figuring out what the capacity of the individual team members can do as well. And they have to think out of the box and trust themselves to be able to really respond effectively.
And a good business leader challenges the status quo. Mm-hmm. Because it's staying the same, ultimately you go backwards.
It's true. And I think you create a mundane work environment, which is difficult. And you really want to have a dynamic work environment that you know that every day is a little bit different. And typically our days are like that because clients call us at a moment's notice. They may need help right away today. Or they're just coming out of the hospital and they need to have some aftercare. They can call and our team rallies to that. And that sort of frenetic pace is important. But even within that frenetic pace, you have to have challenges that they're stretching beyond what they normally do. And that's important strategically within the company, but also strategically within our team.
If you were sitting with an entrepreneur or a group of entrepreneurs who are looking to get into business, what's the one or two things or suggestions or thoughts that you would share with them to help them in their future as business owners?
That's a tough question.
It is.
The first one, I probably would say, are you ready for that risk? Are you ready to really think that, this is going to be worth every waking hour of your day? I'm third generation,
or,
so
every waking hour of your day and waking hours of nights.
Of night, absolutely.
because you don't turn it off when you own a business.
You do not, and I know some business owners that literally wake up straight up in their bed, and they're panic stricken, and that type of risk and that fear is really very difficult. Not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. I think it's important for the reality check for them to self-check themselves, that the fact that the money may not be there, the clients may not be there, the business model that they proposed on paper really is not able to be realized. And, you have to accept success with failure. And with that, you really have to be very realistic.
And realistic, and I use the word passionate, because if you're not passionate, when you do have those failures, too many people quit.
It's true. And I think that goes back to your first question to me. What makes me wake up every morning and
go to work? That's why I asked that question.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked the question. Anyway, running out of time. I've got to go to commercial break. But first, I want to thank you very much, Elizabeth, for being here. How can customers and people out there listening reach you for healthcare aid from birth to the very old? How can they reach you if they need your products or services?
All ages and needs for caregiving can call us at 410-323-1700. Also visit our website, Elizabeth Cooney Agency, spelled out.com. And Cooney is Cooney, and the traditional spelling of Elizabeth.
Well, thank you very much for being here. When we come back from the commercial break, I will have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. The winner will receive a gift certificate to Touche Cafe in Elk Ridge, Maryland. They have amazing bakery products. And I will be talking to Al Maddox, CEO of Time Printers. I'm Allan Hirsh, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM. In the meantime, in the studio with me now is Al Maddox. He's the CEO of Time Printers here in Baltimore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan.
And if anybody wants to talk to Al or myself, give us a call at the same number, 410-481-1300, and let my producer know you're answering the trivia question or you want to talk to the two of us. First question I ask every guest, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
Alan, I'm involved in, I would consider to be a unique business. We have the pleasure of working with people who have ideas, who want to bring them to fruition. They're being innovative, and they allow us to be a part of that process from the inception all the way to actually finishing the piece. It's a tremendous amount of pride and satisfaction that we get when we complete a project. That's unique.
So tell me a little bit about your printing business. You've been around a while. As have some of the other guests. I didn't realize it when I set up, but three of the businesses are multiple guests tonight are multiple generations, as is my family business. So tell us a little bit about the business and what you really do.
Time Printers was founded in 1954 by my dad, J. Albert Maddox Sr. It's classified as a general commercial printing operation. We provide print products for a number of different clients. They range anywhere from stationery to marketing materials to ad journals. But as of late, we've been branching out, and we've had the pleasure to provide other types of products because of the technology that's come about. Printing used to be just a situation where we simply put ink on paper. Now it's quite a bit more than that. It's provided us with new opportunities to provide products and services to our existing customers. It's also given us the opportunity to reach out to new customers. So it's an exciting time for us. What a lot of people don't realize is print is an industry that's evolving. You know, you hear so many things about print being dead. I think the fact about the printing industry is last year, or in 2015, over $86 billion was spent on print.
Yeah, I mean, I come back from a background in printing, and probably from somewhere near the 1920s or 30s until around 2000, or maybe a little earlier, 1990s, printing hadn't evolved. It was basically the same, no new processes.
That is correct.
Until we came up with the computer printing and the digital printing that we have today. And it's just transformed.
It really has.
What printers like you can do, as long as you stay stay up with the technology.
Yeah.
You can do some amazing things that were never been able to do before.
One of the things that we've experienced is in the traditional offset lithographic printing process, there are absolutely beautiful works of print that are existing, and you can see. But the digital industry, the digital technology that's coming about in the business has allowed us literally to produce products that we could only dream of, we could only imagine. I remember in my early years in printing, customers would come in and they would want different types of pieces done that they had thought about. And the one thing we would tell them, oh my gosh, you could never get that printed. It just isn't doable.
I mean, you know, the cost of setting up the presses.
Absolutely.
In those days, because it was either, well, you probably go back to letterpress, where you literally made the type and you had to set it up and put it on the printing machine on the printer.
That is correct.
And that setup was hours and hours and hours and hours of time.
Yes.
And someone wanted 20 copies.
Yes.
It doesn't become economical to do.
Yeah. Technology has allowed us to take those processes and automate them. Computers do a tremendous job for us now, and they allow us to sit down with clients and really create and think about different things that they can come up with, and we can see that we can actually accomplish them.
So you spend time in sitting with your customers trying to understand what it is they're trying to accomplish.
We do.
So that, in a sense, sometimes people will come in and I need this printed, rather than saying to, well, what do you want it for?
Exactly.
So you can help create that custom
Exactly.
product.
And now we can actually do that. You know, we don't. At one point in time, we were time printers. This is the kind of equipment we have, and this is what we do. Now, because of technology, we can have customers come into the plant, sit down, and the absolute very first question we ask them is, what do you need? What do you want? How do you want it done? And then we follow from there. The technology allows us to get to the point we can literally give them exactly what they've come up with.
Yeah, I just want to remind the listeners the trivia question tonight is, what paper towel brand is best known as the Quicker Picker-Upper? Give us a call, 410-481-1300 if you think you know the answer. And I'm talking to Al Maddox, CEO of Times Printers. So obviously over the span of at least the last 20 years, printing has changed. So what are a decision that you made in that time frame that didn't go the way you wanted it to go? What did you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, printing first and foremost is a business. It's a manufacturing business. And one of the things that you have to consider is any initiative that you set about, you know, any type of equipment that you're going to buy, any type of product that you're going to provide to a customer. Number one, you have to make money. You can't just do it because you like doing it for folk. So, you know, we made decisions about different types of equipment that we wanted. We looked at the possibility of the pieces coming in and being popular and people wanting to get the type of products that we have. And that's what guided us with the type of computers that we bought, the type of digital presses that we have. It allows us to give customers basically what they want.
Okay. And so if you were sitting and talking to some other business owners, and you're, as you said, you're multiple generation business, what's one big or two pieces of advice you'd give to someone that was wanting to go into business?
Well, first and foremost, I would tell them you have to really, really love what you're doing. You know, the worst thing in the world, I believe, is to be involved in something that you don't really have a full feel for, that you don't have a love for.
Or a passion for.
Or a passion for.
I got a caller that's calling in, Bob from Annapolis.
Rob from Annapolis. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the answer is bounty.
Absolutely correct. Thank you for calling. If you'll hold the line for Billy, my producer, he'll get down your information. We'll send you that gift certificate. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So having a passion is something.
Aside from loving it and having a passion for it, Alan, I would also say you've got to commit. You know, you're going to be in a situation a lot of times because you're in business for yourself. There's really no such thing as a 9-to-5. And that's the mindset that you have to have. But again, looking back at what I said a few seconds ago, if you love what you're doing, time becomes secondary because getting it done and achieving different things, establishing goals, getting to that point, that's what's most important. You know, you're going to make mistakes. You know,
well, the only person that
some
made
of the
a
most successful people that are out here are the ones that made the most mistakes.
They've all. Bob or Rob, would you please call back? We disconnected you. Please give us a call back, 410-481-1300. Sorry about that,
No problem
Al.
at all. You know,
I have to make sure.
And we've learned from the mistakes that we've made, and it's made us better printers. It's made us better people. Again, regardless of what industry or what business you're in, love what you're doing, be willing to make the sacrifice to give 120% of yourself to it, and don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Well, I think that's a great way to end this segment. But first, I want to thank you for being here. And how can listeners, if they want some printing, how can they reach you at Times Printers?
Absolutely. We have a tremendous website, Alan, www.timeprinters.com. My number is 410-566-3005. Please give us a call and understand that we're here to get you whatever it is you've envisioned, what printed product you want. We're willing to talk to you about it.
Well, Al, thank you again for being here. I also want to thank my producer, Billy Goheen. Makes the show go. I also want to thank my videographer, Larry Wilner of LW BizFlix, who comes in and videotapes some of these shows like he's doing tonight. Please join me next Tuesday at 6 p.m. when I'll be talking cybersecurity with my guest, Stacy Smith, the Executive Director of the Cybersecurity Association of Maryland, Angie Barnett, President of the Better Business Bureau, and Mike Fault, Cyber risk expert at PSA Insurance. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, your host. To reach me, call 443-977-4500 or my website, allanhirshadvisors.com. This has been AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.